So hello everybody and welcome to another talk. Today I'm going to be speaking with Sebastian Hirsch. I always do a little bit of background just before we start, just to let people know, how I sort of establish these connections and why I invite certain people on to talk on this channel. So I've known Sebastian quite a long time. We kind of met probably, I think it was about 2012. It was another workshop that I was giving in Germany. He already had, interestingly, he had some background in Rasa already, which was really, which was a bit strange for me because I was going to teach what I thought were purely sort of Western alchemists, and I didn't think that they would know anything about this at all. But he already had been exploring Asia to some extent and got interested in this subject. So that was kind of a nice connection. So I think that's probably why we connected more than maybe some of the other students at the time, because there was a commonality of interest there. So we've sort of kept in touch over time, and he's kind of he's obviously rooted in the Western tradition, but he has a good understanding of Rasa and and even Ayurveda. I mean, he's written a book on Ayurveda as well. So we've just stayed in contact, and occasionally we come together, we do classes. So just recently in July, we'd done a 3-day workshop, and we were exploring lots of some mineral preparations, some metal preparations, even some plant preparations. We'll get into that. But I think just to give people a sense of where you're coming from. So you're a naturopathic practitioner. He's doing lots of other things. A man with many feathers in his hat, so to speak. But I'll let him explain a little bit about more about what he does and where he is and his kind of interests. So thank you for coming, Sebastian. And perhaps you'd like to just launch into your explanation of what you're up to down there in Germany.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you very much. That's a nice introduction. Yeah, well, that's true. It's always busy, always something to do. So, yeah, many interests doesn't make it easier sometimes. So you have to focus on what you really want to get into on a deep level. Spigirix was certainly for me like the start. 2007 or 8, I started doing that class in Munich. We went to our teacher, Peter Hochmeier, which is a very German-speaking, very good alchemist, and he also gives classes and stuff, and he has a very good understanding of both traditions, I would say, and that was like the first big influence for me. And yeah, and then I did many of those. There are times in your life where you don't have a wife and you don't have kids, and you do have a little house.
Those times.
Yeah. And on the other hand, there's one part is the lab work, and on the other hand, it's like the work as a therapist, which are two boots, are like two sides of a coin to me. In Germany, we have the law, for example, that only the pharmacist is allowed to hand out medicine to the patient, which is in a way kind of good, I think. In the other way, traditionally, it's a nightmare. Mm-hmm. Because it used to be like that. There's this name for the back very long time ago. They were called iatrochemists. Like the iatros is the Greek for doctor or physician, and the chemist or the pharmacist and alchemist, and altogether was one person. So that kind of gives you a special power, I think, when you only prescribe the medicine you did by yourself, from picking to the finished formula.
Yeah,
and that makes it like the strongest, I think. In India and Sri Lanka, they have still the pharmacies where they do the traditional formulas. Well, they always have like many helpers, and like one scholar or the old doctor, he doesn't really get his finger dirty and doesn't do the fire himself, but he knows when to put what in, and he kind of has the overview. Yeah. And here it's different. It used to be like that too in Germany, on the German-speaking areas, I think in Europe as well, that you always see these old pictures where like these 3 guys with the big heads and the ropes, and they stand there and talk and look at the stars and talk about planetary principles, and then you will see like 1 or 2 guys half naked on the ground, like shoveling coals into the fire. And when you look at it first, you say, "Oh, I want to be one of that guy with the hats," Yeah. But on the other hand, you come to thinking, well, I might be the guy on the ground with the black hands and doing all the work.
It's almost good to have a bit of interest in both, isn't it? It's good to know how to
Absolutely.
do stuff behind the scenes.
But there's this saying from I think it was Paracelsus who said himself, the guy like one who doesn't want to get his finger dirty won't make any progress in the art of alchemy. so that's why you need to have both, sure. But working with the patient for me is a different story. So because like officially you have to only prescribe the medicine and the pharmacist gives it. What I do is that I give workshops, and if I have people who are interested and do have problems, and I say, well, come join me for a day of workshop, and we do something together, and I'll show them some things. And when they're included in producing their own medicine, legally, I don't have any problems then. Yeah. So I like that idea too. Like to have like basic workshops, 1 day, 2 day. They don't have to understand the whole Ayurvedic system, just 1 or 2 formulas or ingredients you prepare. And I like that idea. Yeah, very much so.
So you're kind of in a unique position because you've obviously got that understanding of the Western tradition, but you've also got a good understanding of the Vedic tradition. So, you know, how are you squaring that circle? You know, which one are you kind of leaning towards most? Which one do you feel more comfortable working with?
Good question. To be honest, it's a bit easier for me to work with the Western system here, because like the whole homeopathy, tinctures, herbalists, teas, you know, that whole natural thing. Oh, I go around, pick my own flowers. This is very common in where I live. I mean, I'm sure in the UK as well, there's many people who do their own basic home pharmacy stuff. And many people collect their own herbs for teas, infusions. Then next step would be like to make your own balm, your own, you know, like your own oils or something, or like your Bach flowers or whatever. And then the next step would be, okay, well, I can make a tincture. Okay, well, I could make a tincture, and I make a galenic tincture. I keep the plant residue and I filter it and I dry it, and I will burn it and eventually calcine it to get like the purest whitish, grayish, whatever, depends on the substance, ash. And that ash goes back into the tincture. So that's like the first step towards spagyrics. You wouldn't call it a spagyric tincture yet. Depends. There are some different explanations and when it's called what. But it's funny because here many people are like, oh, I take some, I don't know, some nice flowers and I put it in the water and I let it sit in the sun, and then this is my essence of the plant. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's kind of an essence, but when you know the complexity and the whole cosmos of what is possible and how to formulate medicine in a traditional way and what's been done, then this is really, I wouldn't say nothing, but this is, you know, it's like kindergarten of that big school of alchemy, right? So, and it's kind of difficult to say that in a nice way. Everybody has their own interest. To me, it is interesting to go very deep into producing that stuff, testing it myself, showing people how to do it.
I notice these days, alchemy is becoming a word that I'm hearing more and more and more. I mean, it seems like it's appearing everywhere. I mean, when I was a kid, it was an unusual word. You know, if you said alchemy, people would say, what's that? You know, and then suddenly, you might get into some stories of like the old gold makers or something like that. But I see it attached to so many things now. So I think it's kind of important. Interesting point you made about the people doing the sunlight remedies. It's like, I guess it's like drawing a distinction between what we're going to be okay about calling alchemy and what other people are going to be I mean, everything's alchemy, right? I mean, you could say that just a plant growing in the ground is alchemical. But I guess what I'm trying to sort of establish.
I disagree. It's not alchemical in a way, I would say, because the chemist or the alchemist, better to say, is the one who fulfills the ideas of nature. Like when you have that's the Western point of view. When you want the clear power and the ability of the plant to do what it can do, you have to get rid of the phlegma and whatever is not essential to the plant. You know, when the plant grows and it takes the minerals from the soil and the water and everything, and there's only certain amounts which are really useful and necessary, and there's other like byproducts, okay, that comes with it, and that is what you have to fulfill. Like Paracelsus said, for example, the winemaker is an alchemist, the bread baker is an alchemist, because they harvest from nature and they fulfill with their own intention and skill, they fulfill what nature brought. And
Okay.
I like that idea. That kind of is a controversy to the to the wild, the people who walk around and eat the wild herbs and all that organic raw stuff. I mean, that's different, because I think, oh, everything is perfect already. But I disagree. I think it's not perfect. I think we carry the light of focusing, like the agnis. We have the Jata agni, the digestive agni, and everything, but we also have like the agni of the mind and the eyes and the ability to focus and to lead the fire, which makes us unique on this earth. Like no animal can lead a fire in a way we can do.
No,
So,
that's true. That's true.
um,
I was probably
so-
it was a bad example. Maybe I gave a bad, but I was just trying to illustrate the point that it's a word that's become attached to everything now, and it's like maybe overused. So I just wanted to make sure that people got a sense of, what is really, really traditionally alchemy, and what's kind of just become,
Absolutely.
like, I mean, there's shampoos called Alchemy now. So I mean, it's like, it's attached to everything.
Yeah.
No,
I agree. Yeah, you probably know more about how that word is being misused than I do. But I mean, there's great teachers who tell us. I mean, of course, we can read books. We can try to read Paracelsus in original, but it's like, it's difficult. Even in German, as a German speaker, there are like volumes where they have been rewritten 100, 120, 150 years ago from doctors, putting into former modern German, and you still, like 100 years later, you have a hard time understanding it. I mean, so we have teachers like Robert Bartlett, for example. I think you did an interview the other day. He's a great guy, and he read the originals. And of course, every alchemist, every lab practitioner has their own field and perspective and field of what they're interested in and going deeper into. But to me, Robert, for example, was also and is still a great teacher. And then you get the feeling, like when they talk about old texts, and then you kind of get the feeling what is meant by them. There's so many things in these old texts which are lost today in the modern language. In German and in English, I can't really say, but in the German language, we have very many of these Anglicisms, like everybody, it's like when you go to India, it's like, and then there comes an English word.
That one word.
They're adapting the English. Yeah. So, and there's that too. And in a way, it's nice because it helps people around the world to get closer to each other and understanding each other better. But on the other hand, some depth is lost, I think.
I mean, in some of the Rasa texts, they'll quite often they'll give you names. You see these names come up again and again. There'll be either references to a plant or a mineral. But when you really go into the kind of the more detailed books explaining these things, they'll say, well, today we use this, but we don't really know what it is. It's a missing ingredient, or we assume that it's this plant. Is it similar in the Western tradition as well? Is there a lot of things that are named something and then...
Same here too. There are things where we kind of tend to interpret and think we know what they're meant, but to be 100% sure, it's not always that easy. With plants, I think it's quite good, because we have that, I don't know when that started, that when they did the Latin names, I think 200 years ago or something, they started to categorize with the Latin names. Before that, they used to describe the plants very well. There's this English Dr. Nicholas Culpeper, for example. He wrote books. One is called A Complete Herbal, I think. And he's interesting. He writes about the rulers of the plant and all that, and how to use it and for what. And that's there. And I think the description of the plant is very good, so we know what plant is meant. Yeah. But there, on the other hand, there's, for example, Paracelsus. I always have to point him out, because he, in the German-speaking world, he was very impressive, because he was teaching in the university in German language, which was a disaster for the other scholars then, because he said, I need the German language to describe what I really mean, because he said the Latin cannot do it. I don't know. I mean, I did learn Latin once back then, but he was able to speak both perfectly, and he decided to use German. And then he still would have some own terms he came up with, because he said they are not there. Like, for example, about the atmosphere, like some kind of word he used, like when he was talking about like frankincense and cleaning rooms and atmospheres of like bad influences. He called it, I think, the meteoron, like the surrounding energies. And he just came up with the word and wrote about it. And nobody else really, I mean, you could figure what he meant, but that word was still new. So there's that too. Yeah, in a way.
I like some of those terms. I quite often, when we're working and we're doing some stuff, sometimes you'll do a little download on a kind of Western equivalent, and some of the kind of things that pop up, like just the descriptions of it, they sound really good. I mean, obviously, being Western myself, your ear naturally gravitates to the logic behind those terms, and they make a lot of sense. So that's a sort of great. It's been really interesting for me to sort of look and see. Like I was there one time and you were distilling deer horn. That was really interesting.
yeah.
Some of the sort of patterns and the equipment and how you were doing it, and the fact that it's very sort of like, this distillation idea, that's not really common in the Rasa. I mean, we have Arco, so we're doing like sort of distillations, but it's nothing.
But this is more like Arca is more like for wines and licorice, right?
And just like you just making like rose water decoctions.
Oh, like that.
Very simple distillation,
No, but I remember the deer horn. That's a dry distillation. That's a different thing. I think that is quite unique to. Well, I can't really say, but you do find it more easily in the Western traditions, the dry distillation. They do it with everything. With amber, for example, you could do it. Even though with plants, you can like take a wine bottle and stick in your, I don't know, your basil leaves or something, and fill it up, and you put a glass tube on it, like the distillation bridge, we call it, or like distillation helmet, I think also is called. And then you have to seal it very well, and you start with the smallest fire, and then all the phlegm comes, the watery parts come of the plant, and then obviously the ethereal oils, if they are, and then there comes a lot of smoke, and that smoke condenses as well, and then there comes your kind of sour liquid, and in the end there might even come some volatile salts depending on the material. And with deer horn, it is a lot of volatile salts, which is quite cool to see, because you have like a dry substance on the bottom of your bottle, and you start raising the temperature over hours with your charcoal and blower, and then suddenly you have these crystals inside the glass, like you have on the old windows when there's frost outside in the winter. It looks like that, and this is volatile salts, and those are meant to be highly effective and penetrating in the healing processes, because they're so subtle, and they're so fine, and they goes directly, you should say in an Ayurvedic way, it goes directly into the deeper dhatus, right? So that helps too. I mean, and it's a different story to formulate that then, and how to use it, and the amounts and stuff, because that just smells very, very badly, so you don't feel like tasting it right away.
Is it kind of mixed? They're doing like pastes in Western tradition, like say.
Yes. But some of them, they are external. Most of those dry distillations, like of the stinky raw stuff. For example, when you do the amber, we did amber in dry distillation, and you will have. I'll find the pictures on that. You will have on the the flask where you collect it. It will have different layers. Like there's this greenish, and then there's this brownish liquid, and the different parts, and you could. Also go into what element represents it, and then take only one of those parts, and then you have to know where you want to go with your remedy. But for example, that you would take only 1 or 2 drops and mix it with maybe one tablespoon of oil or balms, and then you put it externally on some special.
So would those different colors, those different stratas, would those be collected separately? They'll make a point of carefully separating all those out and using them differently, or are they all combined again?
Well, what we did was we collected them in one, because when the vapor comes down the tube, you can't really see the color. So you have to wait for the drop to see what color it is.
Okay.
So I would say, yeah, you could try. I mean, when I do it next time, it would be a nice idea to try that. Yeah, but you try to separate it afterwards, of course, if you didn't do it before.
Yeah, I really like this idea of splitting and recombining. That's something that's not so common in Rasa Shastra. So basically, they're working with minerals, they're powdering them. You're always tending to end up with a dried powder that is then decocted with herbs and then taken with anapanas and stuff. So this is interesting, more with this kind of oils, distillates, resins. I see that kind of being more towards the Western tradition.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yes, liquids play a bigger role, I think, in the Western, because we also have this glass making tradition much longer here. Like, I don't know when they did start, the glass makers, like when the flasks were more professional and more better to use. But the tradition is more glass wise. It's more used here. So yeah, that's a nice difference, of course. And that being fractured is, I also see, like you said, as a big difference. Like the higher alchemy in the West, you have to say there are dry substances, like there are these mysterious names like the red lion and the quintessence and of certain things, all that stuff. They are described to be powders. Like Paracelsus, they said he had like a sword, and on that sword he had that handle, and on that handle he had like a little screw thing where you had like it was like a empty inside.
Yeah,
and he could preserve some medicine in there, and it said that he had a red powder in there, and that red powder he could use immediately as a remedy. Like this is like the highest whatever, this philosopher's stone or whatever, and you put like just a little drops of like a little dust of that into any substance, and the substance turns into a very high medicine. Like that.
Interesting. You said, yeah. I was just did an interview with a chap named Narendra Das. He's in France. So he's very much for the Nadi Puraksha. So he's doing all the Ayurvedic pulse, the traditional pulse taking. He was talking in there about his guru was traveling with this danda, this stick, and the idea was that they were compartmentalized like a bamboo. You get like the internodal spaces in a bamboo, and each section could come apart, and in each section he had a different type of bhasma. So in his staff, he had 60, or the original staff had 64 different types of bhasma in there. So then he would travel with those, and of course you didn't worry about getting attacked or robbed, or nobody's going to run off with your stick. And of course they didn't realize hidden in the sections of the stick were all these amazing medicines.
Nice. I'd like to have one of those.
Yeah.
Filled up already.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's just interesting. There's so many comparisons, isn't there? There's so many things that cross. I'd even heard that Paracelsus had got a lot of influence from India. I don't know. Had he actually always supposed to have got as far as India to?
Well, I was in a talk, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, from a Swiss guy. He was a historian, and his whole life was about Paracelsus, and he did charts and showed on a map where it's like really historically proven that Paracelsus was, and he came quite far. Like it was Turkey for sure, and beyond that is quite sure, but they didn't write so much back then, like in the books of the towns and stuff. They didn't write so much about it, so hard to find. But I would say definitely he did knew about it, and also that the exchange of the traveling guys was much higher. Like he always pointed out that the real medicine, the real understanding of nature, the light of nature, he called it. You don't find in the books, and you don't find in the university. You find it outside in the nature, and talking with he would calling the not the run, like the traveling folks, like nomads,
Nomadic peoples, yeah.
Yeah, nomadic people. Like when you think about how Paracelsus didn't become so old. Like it was 1492, I think, or 93, he was born, and you didn't even become like 50 years. And he was traveling so much. So you can imagine that everywhere he went, he stayed longer for a week. He was building up a lab there and doing alchemy. And he spent also lots of time in the mountains where they collected the ore, and he was in these little huts on the mountains where they cooked it and see what's inside. Well, anyhow, there's lots of stuff.
He has a good understanding of material, what we would call like a good material science. You know, he understands how to obtain things, how they're made, the process of extraction. So all that adds to the, you know, the processing knowledge. If you
And he was always like that's what I like about it, that he was not a scholar. I mean, he was smart and he did know all that, but he always said it's in the light of nature. That means the signature, like the plant or the material, it shows you what it is for. You can learn, and that reminds me again of the sadhus. What are they called? The rishis. You know, the old guys. You know, were sitting in their underwear in the Himalayas, and they're getting enlightenment. What is this plant for and this plant for? And they, you know, those stories better than me. But
I mean, I've actually tried an experiment. There was a guy I knew who did kind of like intuitive herbalism, and he did sort of classes, and he sort of showed you how to kind of intuit from them. And I mean, I remember doing a couple of plants I knew nothing about. I didn't even know what they were, but I just described using this technique he was talking about, and it was pretty accurate. If you looked up the indications for that plant, and that was just by how it felt, its lightness, its heaviness, its color, its smell, you know, you could kind of intuit what it would be useful for. And it was actually quite good. I mean, I'm not saying it was 100% accurate, but it was close. You know, if I'd have written down what I thought the indications were and actually looked at the medical implications, it was pretty close.
Nice. I mean, but this is also, I think, one hidden or forgotten part of us as human beings, that we're actually able to do that. I think in the Amazon region, they do the same, you know, with their, I read, you know, where they also do these ayahuasca trips and stuff. They get into contact with the plant, and the plants as teachers, they tell them what they are for. Oh yeah, you can use me, prepare me like this and use me like that. And then that's my destiny. Yeah. So, and I think we all have that inside in a way. But I think also to talk about it, it's nice that we use the planetary system. Like in the signature school of signature, like you will have your nettle, your urtica urens, and okay, what's the main thing? It stings, right? Every child in the world where it grows, they remember it. So it stings. Well, that it's a Mars energy, right? And so that's quite obvious. And I always say that signatures are what's obvious is the most important. So, and because it's difficult for me also to be clear about that. Like when there's so many plants where it's unclear. Let's take sage, for example. Sage, yes, it has a lot of Mercury. It has a lot of Jupiter energy. It has Saturn. It doesn't care so much about the you know, the wheel of the year, you know, like some companies, they collect it in the deepest winter time and stuff, you know. So you can't really say that sage is a Mercury plant,
right?
So it always depends on and how when you collect it, and how and where you collect it, and how you prepare it, how you do the medicine. You can also give it the direction, what you want to use it for. Kind of like in this Anupana idea, like when you take it with the alcohol, it goes directly to second dhatu, and you take it more with like fatty substances, it goes to a different level. So it's this similar principle.
When you've been studying over the years, when you've been looking at the Western system, I mean, how much do you think people are still using the kind of astrological connections? Is it still a strong part of the tradition, or do you think people have kind of, yes, they kind of know it, but they're not using it so much? How are you finding that?
I mean, it is there, but when you go into that, you don't find so many people really knowing about it. Or, I mean, knowing is individual. idea, but being so sure about it that they can talk about it.
I mean, it's almost like it's fractured, isn't it? You've got people that are astrologers and you've got people that are alchemists, but you don't get many alchemical astrologers.
Not so many. Yeah, that's true. And also a problem is also the modern phytotherapy, the modern herbalism. It's all about flavonoids and saponines, and they put it all chemically in the chemical understanding, but they're losing so much, right? So it is, they have to struggle. I think we do kind of have to struggle, but I think that also how I understand your work is that you are doing your job as good as you do, because it's important that we keep it alive. Like, we are the guys, like, if we don't pass it on to our children, our great grandchildren, they will find a book somewhere and read about it, but they don't have it alive. They don't sit on the fire with you, they don't hold the pestle and mortar, they don't pour the liquid silver into something. All these experiences, they get lost if we don't pass it on. And
certainly we're all trying to do that. Or everybody I've had on and had these discussions with, in their own unique way, they're very specialist, and they have something that they preserved uniquely, and most of them luckily are teaching, so it is being passed on. But it's just interesting to me that I suppose in the past people were multidisciplinary, they just could do many different things, whereas now we have all become specialists. I try to include the Jyotish into the Rasa as much as I can, but if you look at the old texts, it's kind of more with reference to the moon mansions, the nakshatras. They don't really go into signs and stars, and it's not in there so much. So you have to almost read beyond the text and try and think, well, what are they actually meaning when they're saying that the moon is particularly good there? Why is it good there? And then you can look at the stars. But interesting that that it's still out there, and it's still in the Western tradition, and people.
It is there, it is there. I mean, when you can find a lot of descriptions also on when to harvest plants, right? Not only the moon. The whole what they call the anthroposophical guys, the meta, the biodynamic gardening and stuff. They are quite deep into that, and I do like it. But what I say, it's quite impractical sometimes when you have 2 times a year where you can collect a certain plant, which would be the best moment cosmologically, and on those days there's rain. So what do you do? I mean, you have the perfect day, or the June 24th for your St. John's Wort, and then there's a lot of rain. So better to pick it a week earlier or after, when there's better, there's sunshine, and it's better. And Paracelsus, what I like about him, he said, well, you take your herb, you pick your mineral, you do whatever you do when you need it the most. It's not like, he was like, the influential of the astrology influence from the stars, from the planets. He said, they are there, but they are kind of, they just give a tendency. They're not, how do you say, they're not too pushing.
It's not, it's like the Muhurtas. When you elect a time to, quite often I'll use Muhurtas to sort of time a medicine. So I'll look at when is an auspicious time to start. But like one of my tutors, who is very good at electing stuff, he said, sometimes you just have to do it, and it can be a terrible Muhurta. But even within that timing, there may be a few minutes or a few hours left or right or either side, where it's slightly better. So he said, just pick that. Don't try.
And it will be still better having that medicine.
It's still better.
It's still not, or without compared not having it. Yeah,
absolutely.
And coming back to the moon, the Paracelsus said, for example, also that any day is best, but full moon. Do not collect any plant on full moon. You might do that with a plant where you do want the moon aspect, like how do you call that? That sea flower? I don't know the English word. Lotus flower, which is
lotus, yeah.
Floating on the water, in the water, having a white flower, and then those you could collect on the full moon. Maybe
that's the same. Muhurta is the same. They don't. It's like dark moon, new moon, and full moon.
All right, I didn't know that.
Void periods,
Yeah, and still it needs to be a good time for you as well, right? I think. So it needs to fit into your life, and you want to produce your medicine with it. And I like the idea what Robert Bartlett also, he picked it up in his books, and I heard it before. Those signatures of the 7 weekdays. Yeah, so you have a sun signature, let's say St. John's Wort, you collect it on a Sunday and you process it on a Sunday, and once it's finished, you will take it on Sundays.
Right.
And the same for other planets too during the week. And this will, when you take it, and every day you take from the weekday, that helps you get into touch with your nature and with the nature outside, and kind of gets you in tune more. Yeah.
I wonder if there's a kind of a weather thing going on here as well, because obviously Indian sort of tropical weather is so different to what we experience in Northern Europe. I mean, I find there's only really practically 3 months of the year that are any good for me to do this stuff outside, because the weather's just abysmal here. So it's almost like I wonder whether there isn't all this distillation and it's stuff that could be done inside, isn't it? It's not you don't have to stand outside and do it. You can kind of do it in a laboratory. So I wonder wonder how much our environment has changed the way that we approach alchemy, but depending on, the more kind of Asian approach or the kind of North European approach.
I would say so too. I mean, you see it in the formulas that often it says that dried in the sunlight.
It's possible. Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason why we have the dark beer, right? And why you have the stout and the Guinness, because it wasn't dry enough after the crop, the harvest. They weren't able to dry it anymore, so they roasted it on the fire. So,
right. Yeah, amazing, isn't it? It's all these kind of things that you don't think about, but that you're the time, the place, the peoples, the culture, they have such a big impact on all these things, how they're translated over time and how they work.
Absolutely.
The fact that I was talking to, like, say, Robert Bartlett the other day, and he was just talking about, he said he kind of really likes this kind of culture now, because he said this throwaway culture enables him to find so many amazing things, all the things that people are throwing away that are useless for people, that they discard. They're fantastically useful for him. He can improvise and make all these amazing gadgets, and there's never been a more abundance of material to make all these amazing gadgets.
Yeah, but that's one thing I like about him too, that he is like the guerrilla alchemist. You don't need 10,000 euro or something to put up a lab. You just need a basic material, and then you need to be creative.
Which is kind of the Asian tradition, isn't it? I mean, I find that in Sri Lanka and India, when I was there, just the most basic stuff is used, but even old pots repaired, wrapped again, and even ash, or recovering the salts from cow dung after it's burnt, just to use those as remedies. It's stuff that we wouldn't normally think about.
Yeah.
How do people get in contact with you? I mean, you didn't really give so much of a background about what you're doing. I know you're doing like some massage work, you're doing remedies, you're making stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and all kinds of cupping.
The remedy part, yeah, let me talk a little bit about that. Remedy part is one part, but also I feel like what I experienced, like as a therapist, when a person comes to you, first thing that they call you up and they say, well, hi, here's this and that, and I have the problem. And from that 2-3 minutes talk on the phone, you already get the idea of what it's about, right? Why that person comes into your life at that point. And it has something to do with, it's all resonance on the universe. So that's why I don't like to make appointments on the WhatsApp. You need to, when you hear the sound of the voice, it tells you. All right, and then they are here, and then of course, how you come up to them, how you feel the pulse, how you pick your words. It's all very subtle, and it can be very subtle. It depends on who you are, and then of course I check what I find, and I do like traditional Western, what stuff that the doctors did 150 years ago. Like you feel, is the liver hotter than the spleen part, and the examination of the back on the special zones which are connected to the inner organs. Is there anything you find there? And then these are all hints combined with the tongue and a little bit of iridology, just basic stuff. You need minimum like 3 levels of checking the person. So you have like the how do you call it, the antlitz diagnosis, like not the aura, like where you have the lines, where you wear this red. Is there a red nose that's connected to the heart or whatever? And and you will get, you see, I find that sign on the back, and I find it on the pulse, and I hear it in the way he talks as well. And then I have 3 levels. For example, There are others too. And there are 3 levels that kind of make my diagnosis more stable, more strong, that it kind of supports my first impression. And if it does, not always, then I go by that. And I feel, okay, certainly you do have a liver problem, you're a choleric person, and it's all stuck, and that's why you have a gall problem, and there's stones in the gall, and of course then you will need that. You will need a bloodletting, for example, would be a good idea, and then a leech would be a good idea, and a certain diet. Of course, for everyone it's a little bit different, but you get the idea. And the Ayurvedic stuff I like it very much, also for lifestyle and food. That's what my book is about as well. Just the basic ideas. If people understand the basic ideas, like I also like the prevention of like the just well-being. That if you don't have a really chronic problem, you're still interested in that stuff. It's so helpful that you understand that you're like a sanguinic person, or you're Vata type more, or a Pitta, just to know that. And then to know, okay, for me, it's better to have a regular meal every day on that time. And it's good to get up in the morning and do my practice. And for the other person, it's not as important. And then you do your breathing exercise and your ice bath and all that stuff on top of it, and you take your omega-3 oils and whatever. That's nice. But if you have like your basic, how you get along with your constitution, that's good. And then if a certain problem comes, you go into deeper treating, and you need a therapy plan. And for more chronic stuff like cancer and severe things, you need more attention, and you need to put more energy into that. But yeah, to me also, even the younger people interest me, like my age and younger, because for me it was so helpful when I was, I don't know, 12. I first met my mentor, my Heilpraxis practitioner, an old lady, and it opened up a new world, for looking at things and how like coming out of the box the parents put around you. This just opens up things, and your whole point of view changes. There's this saying, it's better to pass on the fire or the flame, and not a box with ashes.
Right, okay.
So
like
in a way, I mean,
living tradition, isn't it?
It's like more, but it's I kind of get
that's a good way. I like that. I'll remember that one. That's
but
nice.
Compared to Rasa, it's not right? It's better to give the box with ashes.
Well, in all circumstances except for that one, maybe, because I want the ash at the end. But I get it.
Yeah, like enabling people to learning about themselves, what they bring, what they are, what they're in the Buddhist way, they say it's the vehicle, right? The body is the vehicle. In Ayurveda as well, they say that's the vehicle. Dr. Yoshi, I have to mention him. He was also a nice Dr. What's the full name? Venkata Narayana Yoshi. Yeah, he's a good guy. He's based in London, and we did classes with him as well. We invite him regularly, and he said also that it's so important to understand that. Yeah,
he's a walking library. He can go around the field and suddenly discover all these amazing plants that you didn't even know you had. So
absolutely, yeah.
So just sort of wrapping up a little bit, just kind of coming to the end, just to ask you really, I mean, if people want to get in contact with you or, find out more about what you're doing. I mean, you've got a clinic locally in town, and then you work from home as well. You've got a couple of bases, and how do people go about getting hold of your websites?
There's a website. Maybe we can put it in there. It's Heilpraxis /hirsch.de. English and German is fine. Other languages I'm not capable of speaking. There's email. We can put the email as well in there. So and there are like regular workshops, couple of times a year.
What would you be doing workshop wise? Are you teaching more? It's kind of like a combination, mostly Western, but a little bit of Rasa as well. You'll be doing
a little bit of both. I did the last workshop I did by myself was just basic stuff like cooking Ayurvedic oil and ghee, and we did like pistis, like this red coral with rose water. This pisti is just grinding for many hours, and because locally not so many people here are like into that already, so you have to kind of start with the basics, with the simple stuff, and get their flame going for that, and then you can go deeper into that. But the goal is definitely to reach a bigger how do you say, a bigger distance people more far away as well. I mean, this is a beautiful area. People can come here, make a holiday, and have a couple of day workshop.
It's very easy to get to. I was surprised how easy it was to get to from Munich. It's literally just one train line, so it's very easy to get there. We'll kind of connect probably next summer. We're thinking about doing something in July, so
it is fixed already. I have to remind you.
It's absolutely fixed. You're absolutely right.
It has to pass the
I'll put the details up. I'll add the details about that. So if people are interested in coming and doing a workshop, we'll both be there next July. So that's
I'm going to do. I'm certainly going to do in this year. I'm going to do a little bit like I'd like to do the how you say that like 1 or 2 days repeating that stuff we did in the class with you. Like I have some students from last class that will come in November, and we do 1 day and we go through it again, cook it again, upcoming questions, why they're in the process. So I like to, not only do one workshop and then that's it. So I'd like to, keep it alive and really, and certainly there are points where you come into a situation where you don't know, did I do it right, or is it really finished, or this happened, is it still okay, so just to have like I'd like to see it as a network. Like there's like it can be many Rasa Shalas, like lab spaces around, and then you have a network. The digital world allows us now to use it in that way, that we all connect. Who's really interested in practicing, get together, do stuff, set up workshops, and also talk about the effects, what it does. Sure.
Yeah, interestingly, we managed to do, because it's been legalized now, but the cannabis is now okay.
From April 1st, starting April 1st, it's like a partly legalization in Germany. Every adult is allowed to have 3 plants, female plants on their own compound, and after harvest, then you have to weigh out I don't know how much, 25 or something, or 50 gram you're allowed to have in your house. So, but still, it's it's not about smoking weed. It's about getting using that as a medicine as well. I mean, you might have heard that there's these this Rick Simpson oil. There's this other guy from Netherlands, Werner Bruning, the pot father. He's much into medicinal use of hemp. And I like that idea in a way, because there's so many people. I have a patient now. He's coming for vitamin C infusions every other week, and he grows it in his garden now because he wants to get rid of his fentanyl, like the really strong stuff he's taking. And so I support that. I think it's a good idea to make your own stuff, get rid of of all the influences and what people tell you. Come to yourself and learn, and again remember how to feel. Get in touch with nature, with the plant, and that can help in a nice way. And then what we did was a Vijaya Gritam, right? And also not only doing the extract and using that, also showing how to do it in a spagyric way, how to do it in a because hemp is obviously found in wherever it grows. It was used medicinally. So in Ayurvedic also it's like a upavisha, right? So you have to cure it.
Yeah, so it's sort of
don't take it like that.
Semi-toxic. Yeah, I mean, it's just nice that it was, because obviously I can't do that here, but I was able to do that there because you were able to grow it. So we prepared that basically a cannabis ghee, and then we actually did, went through all the steps of doing that. So that was really nice for me to do, to be able to do that. Obviously I haven't got access to those materials here. It's not legal. So yes, that was a nice aside to be able to do that and show that.
Even though it doesn't play a major role in Ayurveda, right? As a healing plant, but
it's kind of there, but it's not a hugely. I mean, in the traditional side of things, yes, of course, in ritualistic use, it's very popular. But in the actual Ayurvedic, it crops up in a few remedies, usually to do with like eating.
I wouldn't also say in the West as well. I would say it's not a big thing. Like if you traditionally. If you look at cold pepper, for example, he describes it and he says it's more like for urinary problems, like bladder and kidney. It dehydrates, and I forgot the more details now, but you can look it up. But it's not like they use it today. But today everybody's so tense and so focused and so and not relaxed. So I like the idea that everybody can find the right dose. That's like that. Maybe it's a nice word to the end. Paracelsus, most important. It's the dose that makes it poison, right? Yeah, I mean, and that's same with Radha, right? And any tincture, and you do yourself, you slowly have to start 1 drop, 2 drops, and see what it does, and stick with it, and make it go into communication with it.
It's been amazing. I mean, thank you very much for coming
Likewise.
on and talking. And I hope people get in contact with you. Sebastian's doing some really interesting work. You know, he's a kind of unique in a way. He's got access to so much information and knowledge. So I encourage people to look up what he's doing, have a look at his website, contact him. And if you're interested in the classes he's doing, please get in contact. And thank you for coming on and speaking to us and sparing the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time and for your work, Andrew. And hope to see you next year in July.
Fantastic. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.